Hello, North Creek Church. It is Good Friday, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you. I want to start by reading the Gospel of Mark and Mark's account of what happened on Good Friday. This is from Mark 15. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, saying, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "Listen, he's calling for Elijah." And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and take him down." Then Jesus gave out a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now, when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was God's son." So the last few weeks, knowing that I was going to do this short Good Friday meditation, I've been wondering where I should do it from. I found myself asking a somewhat different but related question, and it's the question, where is Jesus on Good Friday 2020? Now, of course, Jesus is everywhere. The risen and ascended Jesus knows no limits. The question that captured my imagination was, where would Jesus most characteristically be on this Good Friday? This Good Friday of this most strange Holy Week. And then it dawned on me. In the hospital, of course. This stage on which all of us have had our eyes glued the last few weeks at hospitals all over the country, where a drama has been playing out, and it is a drama of deep sorrow and deep suffering, but it's also a drama of enormous heroism and self-sacrifice. It's a drama that has been repeated at hospitals all over the country, but it actually began way back on January 19th, right here at Providence Hospital in Everett. And here's what I know. And where there is deep suffering, Jesus is there. How do I know that? Because the most revealing day of Jesus' life was Good Friday. That's where we discover who Jesus really is and why he came. That is where we discover his fearless willingness, driven by nothing but love, to voluntarily step into the center of the darkness and brokenness of the world, to go to places in the world's brokenness that seem farthest from hope and even farthest from God. That's why he quotes Psalm 22. You might remember that we used it in worship back on March 15th. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Had God actually forsaken his beloved Son? Of course not. God was there in and around and with Jesus. It just felt like he had been forsaken. Because in the places of greatest pain and suffering, Jesus is there. This is the mystery that we claim in that enigmatic phrase from the Apostles' Creed. He descended into hell. See, on Good Friday, Jesus was doing more than just paying a penalty. He was taking the world's brokenness onto his shoulders, all of the pain and the suffering as well as the sin. He did it that he might accomplish the mission on which Jesus sent him, and that was to begin the healing of the world, the healing of each of us beloved creatures, and the healing of this creation that he loves so much. All of this he did for us. How do we even begin to wrap our minds around that kind of love? Well, I think the way we do it is we look for parables, we look for reflections of it in our world. Some of you know that one of my guilty pleasures is listening to history podcasts, and I listen to a history podcast called History Extra from BBC, and it is a British history podcast. And this last week, they had a special coronavirus episode on which they interviewed an author named Geraldine Brooks. She's a Wall Street Journal reporter, but she also writes historical fiction, writing fiction that is based on real events. And the book that she was talking about was Year of Wonder. And the real-life event on which she based this novel happened in 1660 in a tiny village in Doncastershire in England called Eyam. And it was a village of just 350 people. And in 1660, the plague came to Eyam. And they had to decide what to do as a village. And the remarkable thing that happened is that the vicar, the local pastor, a guy named William Mompesson, invited them to consider a almost unthinkable possibility. And that was to quarantine themselves, to cut themselves off from the entire local area and not let anyone leave, not let anyone come, and cut themselves off for an entire year, which the villagers all voted to do. And they quarantined themselves for a year. Of the 350 in the village, only 83 survived that year of wonder. And yet, by doing so, they likely saved tens of thousands of lives. So as I listened to this interview on the podcast, it occurred to me that something not so different has been happening day after day, every day in hospitals all over the country as hospital staff, nurses, and doctors show up for shifts. Show up exhausted, show up not knowing at all what was going to happen, show up knowing that they had inadequate protective equipment, and yet showing up. Now, not all of these doctors and nurses are aware of this, though I know some are, but by showing up, they are living out a parable for us. They are living out an example. They were pointing to something greater than themselves. And that is what I read from Mark's Gospel of what happened on Good Friday. Scripture says, "Greater love has no person than this, that you would lay down your life for another." That is the love of which the hymn that we often sing on Good Friday, "What wondrous love is this," points us. Can such love triumph? The thing about that kind of love is when you do it, you don't know. Those villagers in Eyam had no idea whether their act of love would result in anything. Those ICU nurses and doctors, when they show up, have no idea whether their act of love will save lives or not. And the motley, small group of people huddled around the cross on Good Friday had no idea whether this astonishing act of love would triumph in the end. But as Tony Campolo would often say, it's Friday, but Sunday's coming. 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 It's Friday, but Sunday's coming.